There are great actors. There are legends.
That I cannot do.
And then there's Daniel Day-Lewis.
I am the third revelation. I am the third revelation.
The only performer who turned every role into an act of total disappearance, inhabiting his characters to the physical, mental, and emotional limit. He learned to write using only one foot, living like a disabled man even off camera. He spent months isolated in a cut-off house to understand a character. He spoke for years in a voice that wasn't his. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. With barely 20 roles across his entire career, he was nominated 6 times for the Academy Award for Best Actor, winning 3, something no one else has ever achieved. He has won 146 awards with 212 nominations, holding the all-time record for the highest win-to-nomination ratio. He vanished for years, and now, as his name returns to the center of the conversation with his new film, the question is inevitable. Are we looking at the greatest actor in the history of cinema? The answer is yes. Get comfortable, because in this video, there's no fanaticism, only evidence.
Want you to go!
If we go, there's a chance there won't be a fight. There's no powder. If we don't go in that, there's no chance. None. You understand?
The Last of the Mohicans is proof that Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't need extreme transformations or shouting to dominate. Here, he disappears without drawing attention to himself. He doesn't chase the shot. He doesn't demand the scene. He doesn't underline anything. He's simply there. And that in cinema is rare. This role isn't about psychology, it's about identity. Hawkeye is a man who doesn't fully belong to any world, and Day-Lewis plays him through the body, not through speeches. The way he walks, the way he looks, the way he reacts before he thinks. He builds a character with a realism that's almost frightening. That's why his preparation truly matters. He didn't train to look believable. He trained to live like the character. Hunting, surviving, moving through nature. Not as a method, but as a necessity. The result is an almost silent performance, yet loaded with meaning. Every gesture communicates belonging, dignity, and rootedness. It's not his most complex or most celebrated work. And yet he carries an entire blockbuster on sheer presence. This spot isn't here for nostalgia or epic spectacle. It's here because even in his most restrained mode, Day-Lewis was already far above cinema's standard.
Go out and tell him now. Go and fucking tell him. I'll not crawl around in the fucking gutter for him. I'll kill him first. I'll rip his fucking throat out.
The Boxer shows a different side of Daniel Day-Lewis. Less myth, more wear and tear. Here, he doesn't build a character through grandeur, but through a punished body. A man who leaves prison with no clear direction and finds in boxing not an epic, but a way to stay standing. Preparation was essential. Day-Lewis trained for months like a real fighter, stepping into the ring with professionals and taking genuine hits. He wasn't trying to fake it well. He was trying to understand what happens to a body that lives under constant tension, fatigue, fear, discipline, pain. All of that seeps into the performance because it seeped into his psyche. What's interesting is that the training doesn't make him tougher. It makes him vulnerable. Danny Flynn doesn't fight to dominate. He fights so he doesn't collapse. He moves with contained clumsiness, with a violence always about to explode, but never glorified. Every bout feels like an internal negotiation between enduring and giving up. This performance proves that even far from his most celebrated roles, Day-Lewis understood something essential. True realism isn't in the punch, but in what the punch does to the character's soul.
Because I cannot have another in my life! Because I lie and sign myself to lies!
The Crucible is one of Daniel Day-Lewis's most important performances because it isn't about showing off. It's about principles. John Proctor is a man cornered by a sick society where telling the truth is more dangerous than lying, and Day-Lewis understands something key. This character doesn't need greatness, he needs endurance. There's no flashy method here, no striking physical transformation. Everything happens inside. Every scene is built on constant pressure, as if the world were slowly closing in around him. His voice, his posture, his silences carry the weight of someone who knows giving in would be easier, but also an irreversible defeat. What truly matters about this portrayal is how current it feels. Proctor isn't just fighting a false accusation. He's fighting collective fear, moral hysteria, a system that needs scapegoats to sustain itself. Day-Lewis doesn't turn him into a martyr or an admirable hero. He makes him human, awkward, proud, painfully aware of what he would lose if he betrayed his truth.
I'm an innocent man! I spent 15 years in prison for something I didn't do! I watched my father die in a British prison for something he didn't do!
This is one of Daniel Day-Lewis's rawest and most emotionally honest performances, because it doesn't come from control, it comes from chaos. Jerry Conlon isn't a tragic hero or a moral symbol. He's an immature, reckless kid who walks into a nightmare far bigger than him. And Day-Lewis understands that the character's journey isn't epic redemption, but slow destruction. What's astonishing here isn't just the intensity, but the arc. Day-Lewis starts from lightness, almost irresponsibility, and then loses layers of identity scene by scene. The body shrinks, the eyes dim, the voice changes. Prison doesn't harden him, it empties him. And when the character matures, it isn't through nobility, but through exhaustion, guilt, and survival. For the interrogation scene, Day-Lewis pushed immersion to the limit. He asked for the blows to be real, endured hours of physical and psychological pressure, and went to set without sleep or food. What we see on screen is real breaking point captured by the camera.
I have told you before. I was with Paul Hill most of the day.
Probably Daniel Day-Lewis's most misunderstood performance. Because here, there's no visible transformation, no emotional explosions, no award scene. And that's precisely why it's one of the hardest. The Age of Innocence is cinema of repression, and Day-Lewis builds his character out of what cannot be said. His work is pure restraint. Everything happens in micro-gestures. A look that lingers half a second too long. A smile that never fully forms. A body that always seems slightly out of place. And that demands absolute control of inner rhythm, because any excess would break the character's moral balance. What's truly brilliant is how he turns social correctness into a physical conflict. His character has been trained to do the right thing, but Scorsese's film asks us to feel the cost of that correctness. Day-Lewis achieves it without underlining, without dramatizing, letting the weight accumulate scene by scene. Every right decision is in truth a small loss. This performance matters because it proves something essential. Day-Lewis doesn't just master excess and destruction, he also masters elegant silence, inner tragedy, and emotion that never gets expressed. Here he doesn't disappear into an extreme character, explain the social rule, and that, as acting, is among the most complex things there is.
Please don't move so much, Alma.
Here, Daniel Day-Lewis does something very few actors even dare to attempt, turning control into emotion. Reynolds Woodcock isn't an eccentric genius or a cartoon tyrant. He's a man who has built his entire identity on order, routine, and precision. And Day-Lewis understands that when everything is that measured, any crack is devastating. His performance is a masterclass in micro-gesture. Every pause, every vocal inflection, every movement is calibrated to communicate fragility without ever fully exposing it. He doesn't need to raise his voice or force presence. Authority comes from detail, from the certainty with which he occupies space. Everything that matters happens between the lines. What's truly brilliant is how he turns rigidity into something human. Under that perfect surface, there is fear, dependence, and a desperate need to control everything so he doesn't break. Day-Lewis isn't trying to make us empathize easily with the character. He's trying to make us understand him, even when he's uncomfortable. Phantom Thread is a perfect farewell because it sums up his entire career: extreme technique, emotional intelligence, and absolute command of silence. There's no display, there's mastery.
And may the Christian Lord guide my hand against your Roman popery!
In Gangs of New York, Daniel Day-Lewis crosses a dangerous line. Bill the Butcher isn't just a charismatic villain. He's a living force, unpredictable, violent, magnetic. And to get there, Day-Lewis turned the shoot into an extension of the character. He didn't go in and come out of the role. He lived as Bill. For months, he trained as a professional butcher to master knives, gestures, and movements with real precision. He learned to throw knives, to fight hand to hand, and to move with the physical authority of someone who has survived violence his entire life. He even managed to touch his glass eye with a knife without blinking. On set, he spoke in the character's accent even off camera, effortlessly intimidating anyone who crossed his path. Many crew members admitted he commanded respect and fear without needing to perform it. The most extreme part came with the cold. During the winter shoot, he refused to wear a modern coat to stay faithful to the period. The result was real pneumonia, treated by doctors, without leaving the character. That level of commitment wasn't posturing. It was internal coherence. What we see on screen isn't empty excess. It's a rare mix of brutality, pride, dark humor, and a twisted moral code. That's why he devours the entire film. Because Bill the Butcher doesn't feel written. He feels like he existed.
2 years ago, I proclaimed these people emancipated. Then, thenceforward and forever free.
This is probably the most technically difficult performance of Daniel Day-Lewis's entire career. Not because of excess, but because of the opposite. Lincoln is an extremely well-known figure, mythologized to exhaustion, and the biggest risk was turning him into a statue. Day-Lewis does the impossible. He returns him to flesh. The work begins with the voice. He rejects the deep, solemn tone everyone expects and adopts a higher, more fragile, almost tired register based on historical testimony. That changes everything. Suddenly, power doesn't come from volume, but from rhythm, from pauses, from the moments he chooses to be silent. The body is bent under the weight of responsibility. The gaze always 1 second ahead of everyone else, as if the character is thinking through 10 consequences at once. What's extraordinary is that he never looks for easy empathy. Lincoln doesn't want to be liked. He wants to achieve something. And that controlled coldness, that humanity without sentimentalism, turns the performance into an absolute lesson in restraint, intelligence, and technical mastery.
To a setting fair of thine, there are red lines of mountain.
This performance shouldn't exist, not because it's good, but because it crosses a physical and ethical line that very few actors have even dared to look at. In My Left Foot, Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't play Christy Brown. He gives up his own body. Throughout the entire shoot, he stayed in a wheelchair, allowed himself to be fed, carried, and treated like the character even off camera. Not as publicity, but because he understood that humiliation, dependence, and frustration can't be faked. What's most disturbing isn't the technical control, which is total, but the inner violence he transmits, the rage, the trapped intelligence, the sexual desire, the wounded pride. It's all there, unsoftened. Day-Lewis forces the viewer to look straight at a brilliant man, imprisoned in a body that won't respond. There's something uncomfortable, almost obscene, in how far he goes. This isn't just an admirable performance, it's a limit experience. And that's why it remains one of the most extreme, risky, and decisive performances in the history of cinema.
I am the third revelation. I am the third revelation.
As I've said many times, this is the best performance in the history of cinema. I'm not going to repeat here what I've already analyzed in depth. In short, he isolated himself for months in the desert, rebuilt his voice from scratch, lived inside the character, learned real mining, and took preparation to an almost inhuman level. If you really want to understand why this is the most legendary role an actor has ever given us, my most watched video breaks it down in full detail. With barely 20 roles, Day-Lewis redefined what acting means. That's why, for me, he's the greatest of all time. If you enjoyed this video, you'll find more analysis like this on the channel. Subscribe, hit like, and I'll see you in the next one.